Power Sink is an 8-teller crystal purchase available to both syndicate agents and nuclear operatives. It is under the Disruption tab, and its description is as follows. Drains immense amounts of electricity from the grid, then explodes once it is saturated. Use wrench to connect it to wires. Once you buy the Power Sink, it will immediately bolt itself onto the ground, or anchor itself to be more specific, and if it is on a high voltage cable, it will immediately start draining the power from the station. It needs to be on high voltage cables, which are the orange power cables, and it will basically drain power from the SMESs directly. If the station, for whatever reason, is lacking good power generation, it might literally drain nothing. It could say 0 kilowatts. This can cap out at 1 megawatt if the station is producing a ton of power. In order to remove a power sink, especially if you're the person who bought it, you need a wrench to unwrench it. And funnily enough, once it's actually unwrenched, you can actually straight up pick it up and even put it in your backpack. It is a 4x4 item. Despite the fact that it's a full structure, you can actually pick it up and throw it. It's kind of janky in that regard. I'm not really sure why you're able to pick up a literal giant electrical device, and you can see from a station that had no power on round start, just having the power sink anchored for 9% of its battery was enough to drain the entire station's power. However, if they do have full power production going, it's very unlikely you will actually drain the power. That's enough about that, though. We'll keep going on to the specifics about the power sink. So I've given the SMES its full charge to better showcase how the power sink works. I will re-anchor it down on a high voltage cable. The power pretty much always flickers the second the power sink is put down, and it will ramp up its drain. So the moment you open a power monitoring console, this is the most powerful tool to actually counter a power sink. The second one is detected, it will warn you saying a rogue power consuming device is detected. And you can actually find these somewhat easily, maybe not super easily, by turning off all the low voltage network and medium voltage network and only focusing on the high voltage network. You can also turn off show departments to make reading this a lot easier. Due to the fact that it has to be in a high voltage network, you can rule out a lot of random places on the station. So like it can't be anywhere in the center, it can't be on the solars. However, syndicate agents could always rewire these high voltage cables into places like maintenance. So if you were to ever look into maintenance and you were to see like this cable go into this room and this room's walled off, that is a place you should probably check first. You do have a decent bit of time to actually deal with the power sink. You can actually see how much load it is pulling from this power monitoring console as well. However, there are also warnings you'll get on the announcement channel as the device generates power. The power sink, once it reaches 70% charge, will actually warn every single person on the station with a central command announcement saying system scans have detected a rogue power consuming device is becoming unstable. So you should hopefully have already known that this thing existed beforehand, either with the power going out in a certain area, seeing it on the power monitoring console. But if you don't notice it until it's at least at 70%, you still have at least 30% of the battery left to go before it will explode. Admittedly, that doesn't leave a whole lot of time, but that's better than having no warning at all. At 80% battery, it will start doing incredibly loud buzzing sounds, which can be heard from a decent distance. So once that 10% threshold crosses, it does become a little bit easier to find, but you still have to be within the vicinity to actually have heard that. At 90%, it will do another incredibly loud buzzing sound, pretty much one of your last audio warnings that you get. The third buzz occurs at 95%, so if you hear the buzz, you better hope that you're at the 80% buzz, not the 95% one. And there is the final buzz at 98%. So again, the buzzing sound isn't an indication that you're safe to go to it. It could be the last thing you ever hear. And the reason why the power sink is one of my favorite items in the game is because of this. I don't know where the audio design for the power sink came from, but it's got to be the coolest sounding thing in this entire game, in my opinion. The explosion effect is pretty devastating. It can wipe out an entire department. It will insta-kill anyone nearby that doesn't happen to have any explosive resistance, but it on its own won't give you. The whole point of the power sink is that it can cripple the power grid of a department, maybe the entire station, and if it goes off, it will annihilate a department like a syndicate bomb. So it's stealthy in the fact that by the time you start hearing it, it might be too late, and its audio range is nowhere near as loud as a syndicate bomb. Probably other problem that's bad with it, though, is that if somebody finds it, it's over. They just need a wrench, and there's nothing that like the power sink is to instantly diffuse the moment it is unwrenched. But some tactics you can use to actually like hide a power sink well is there's nothing stopping you from just walling it in. So you can literally just drop reinforced walls around the power sink. However, people that are like aware that the power sinks behind that can actually just cut off the power sink from a high voltage network. So again, really good engineers that are aware of power sinks, how they work in the high voltage network, pretty much always end up finding these. So power sinks are honestly a lot more useful on larger stations where there's more ground to cover. You can help build redundant wiring. You can wall off maintenances. I've seen things like that work, but the AI is working against you. The power monitoring console is working against you. Hell, even the crew monitoring console is working against you. It's a very niche item, but it's definitely still one of my favorites. The idea of being able to sabotage power and having that really cool sound of explosions also really fun. The announcement also scares people pretty bad, and that can help lure, like if you have an engineer target, that will lure them in the maintenance for sure. Also, it usually baits people like the captain and other people who normally wouldn't to go into maintenance to go into maintenance. So there's a bit of a psychological effect there as well. Anyways, that's enough rambling on about a fairly simple item. Thank you for watching.